All right. This is episode 2 of the Oil Hour. This is Justin Clyburn, the commissioner of the oil. Joining me is Norman Nobody's manager, Matthew Leal. Leal, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, Clyburn. How are you?
Great. We will be joined at some point by Hangovers manager Adam Duffy. He is having technical difficulties and can't figure out the Google. So week 2, not normally a big week in our league or any league, but from a league perspective, it was big for us in that the long-awaited Yahoo video was released covering our 2015 draft party. I spent months trying to plan the reunion and the draft party, and I kind of hoped they'd spend more time speaking to more people. We were rushed for time, and they only ended up interviewing me, Duffy, and Pyle, but I think it turned out great. I broke one of the 10 commandments of the internet by reading the comments. I won't be doing that again. Most of them were some iteration of, I didn't know they let fat gay men in the military.
What?
Yeah, just lots of stuff saying that we're all fat and we're all gay. So the internet at its finest. Comment section is always a cesspool. But the video itself was great. Yahoo did a great job. For those that don't know, everything except for the footage of Iraqis carrying their dead, that was footage taken by one of us. They weren't necessarily all taken by me, but they were all, that was all footage that I had on my hard drive that was taken during our deployment by members of our unit. So they did a great job splicing that all together and, really, contrasting between where we were, what we were doing, and what we were there to do on this day, which was draft fake football players at the most technologically advanced stadium in the world. So if you haven't seen that, go to our website, okaraki.org, and we've got a link there. We've also got the video embedded. Like I said, the week 2 is never that exciting. Everybody's still trying to figure their teams out, and this week was not any exception. Let's see here. Starting with the AFC, I'm just going to go through the standings with you. Can you see this, Leo?
Yes.
Okay, the AFC, as a quick reminder, is the second-year conference that was started last year. They compete for the Kilman Memorial Trophy, and right now the leader of the pack in that conference is Brosh. His Vultures squad is above the next team by about 40 points. And going into the season, we all saw his draft and thought that he had the best draft. We expected this. There's no surprises. The only thing about his team right now is that Jeremy Maclin is number 1 receiver, and Andre Johnson have not done well. But still, with Matt Forte and Danny Woodhead at running back, those are just PPR monsters. Pairing that with Roethlisberger and Gronkowski, and then he's still got Arian Foster on the bench. So not a whole lot to add to what we talked about last week. Brosh's team is definitely the tops in the league. Number 2 this week is Lynn's Brewmasters. Is this a team that surprised you, or did you expect this from them?
It kind of did surprise me. But I mean, whenever you really look at it, I guess you really shouldn't be surprised. He's got some great players with Edelman, Tannehill, Brown, Spiller. It's going to be interesting to see what he does with Jordan Cameron. He's got Dwayne Allen on the bench. I'm interested to know if he would be able to pick up someone else. When does Antonio Gates come back? In 2 more weeks?
Yeah, he has a 4-week suspension.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm sure that Allen you could ride it out. I don't know how long Cameron is going to be out.
Yeah, but Allen, he left the Monday night game with an ankle.
Oh, that's right. He did. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see who he can find on the waiver wire or via trade. I don't know. He might be working trades out right now. But.
Yeah, and Lynn did something that I was very impressed with and curious to see how it turned out. The number 1 overall pick in the AFC, Brewmasters picked Antonio Brown. If you go and plug in our league settings to any of those websites that do custom rankings, any of those sites will tell you Antonio Brown should be the number 1 pick.
Yeah, you're good to go.
I don't believe anyone has the balls, so to speak, to pick a receiver number 1 in our league, and Lynn did it so far. It's working out well for him, and so he's got Antonio Brown and Julian Edelman teamed up with a couple of PPR running backs and Latavius Murray and CJ Spiller.
Mm-hmm.
So good for him. I think he really did his homework this year, and it's showing. And number 3, the final undefeated team, we got Zerger's Redlegs. Let's see. He's going to be hurting. Drew Brees has not been performing. Andre Ellington is still on the bench, injured. Julius Thomas is still injured. Sean Jackson is still injured. I think Zerger would be the first one to tell you he's lucky to be 2-0 right now. I don't think he has an incredibly difficult matchup coming up, but I don't think that he is one of the top 3 teams necessarily. I'd say the surprise so far in the AFC to me is Musselman. Now, you remember last year, Leo, Musselman started out with 8 straight losses?
Yes, I do.
But props to him, he stuck with it. He kept making waiver claims, and he won 3 of his last 4. This year, he has started out 1-1. He's currently in 4th place with 330 points, which is really astounding. 165 points a week is very good in our league. I believe if you extrapolated that all 16 weeks or 13 weeks in the regular season, that would be the highest scoring team in league history. So I don't anticipate that he keeps that up, but it's a really good start, and I was not impressed with his receivers coming into the season. But, I mean, look at them. Larry Fitzgerald and John Brown have turned out better than I expected, and now Terrence Williams is the number 1 in Dallas.
Yeah, he is. I'm really interested to see what kind of chemistry Terrence Williams and that kid from OSU.
You can't call him a kid. He's like 40 years old.
That's true, he is.
Brandon
Yeah,
Lee.
I'm really interested to see the chemistry that those 2 will have on the field.
Is it going to be Whedon or Matt Castle?
Well, it's going to be Whedon to start out, I'm sure. I don't see Castle coming in and learning the offense in a week and taking the job, but Whedon is pretty bad, so maybe so.
I think I heard Whedon has the worst QBR rating out of every quarterback, correct? I think that's right.
Wow. Well, let me see here. Adam, you finally joined us?
Yeah, as it turns out, it's much easier to just put the app on your phone and do it that way.
That would explain why you're pixelated.
Am I?
Yeah. Leo had a good point earlier in that with you being a 13-foot paw, you really should have your shit together.
Well, in my defense, I'm not using my computer, but it is the exact same one that I was on the show last week using, so your guess is as good as mine. However, it did take a 13 papa to fix it, so I will throw that out there.
And by fix it, you mean just use your phone.
Yeah,
Hey, did it in the field all the time, man.
I think that's called a workaround and not a fix.
I'll fix it while I'm working around.
All right. Well, Duff, Leal and I were just going through the AFC this week. Instead of going through every matchup from last week individually, we're going through the standings and just discussing trends and transactions and how things look in the big picture before we move on to Week 3's matchups. So let me get us back over to the AFC. And at number 5, we've got the Andy Dufresne wannabe and Fitzgerald Steel Rain franchise. You know, for a guy that I didn't know if he was going to make it back to his hotel the night before the reunion, for a guy that I thought like that, and then he showed up at the draft, I thought he'd have a pretty bad draft, but he did very well. He's 1-1. He lost a tough one last week. But, Duffy, what do you think of this team?
Well, I can't see it right now because now I can't get into Yahoo.
Okay, so on your phone, you can't see the screen sharing.
No, because it's much too small even though it's a 6+. Fuck all this shit.
Okay. Well, at quarterback, he's got your old favorite, Matthew Stafford. I wouldn't be incredibly happy with that, but I mean, I guess he has averaged 23 points a game. That's not too bad. His receivers are Randall Cobb, Jarvis Landry, and Roddy White. His running backs are Isaiah Crowell and C.J. Anderson, but C.J. Anderson is on the bench right now, and Devontae Freeman is starting in his place. And then he's got Travis Kelce, Tyler Lockett, and Darren Sproles to round out his starting lineup. We're not going to go through each player individually every week, but for those that don't know, we spent about 2 hours dissecting each team's draft last week, and then we found out that only the first 15 minutes were recorded. So,
Actually, I didn't realize it was only that much.
well, 15 minutes and 1 second to be exact, but so we are playing a little bit of catch-up here. Like I said, I think he's got a good team. He's averaging 155 points a week. He's got some injuries, but he's also playing the Cox this week, so I think he'll be fine.
Now, I'm in Yahoo now, so are you looking at upcoming matchups? Are you just looking at teams and standings? Where should I go?
We're going through the standings.
Okay.
So, in the 6th seed, or the 6th spot, who would be the 6th seed if the playoffs started today, is Reed, and then it's just a big bunch of guys at 1-1 with similar point totals. Like I said, it started with Musselman at 1-1, and then it goes Steel Rain, which is Fitzgerald, the Sawtooths, which is Reed, Negligent Discharges at 7, which is Schuster, Hillier at 8, the Doughboys at 9, Neely's Hooligans hanging in there at number 10, 1-1. Nye's Warm Bodies are 1-1, and now they get Le'Veon Bell back. So I still think he has a shit team, but he made it to 1-1 without Le'Veon Bell. Maybe he can get a boost with him coming back. And then you've got 12 spot, the Rebel Alliance, which is Rowe. Just 0.6 points behind him, you've got last year's champion, War Pony. And in last place, we have the Cox. Peacock, he picked 2 quarterbacks in the first 3 rounds, and it's a cautionary tale. I wouldn't recommend it. So it's kind of a quick and dirty rundown of where everybody stands in the league. Uh, moving along to the matchups. Starts out with Sawtooth and Hooligans. That's Reed and Neely. I don't like Neely's team. I wouldn't expect him to win, but Reed has some injuries. Is there any way that you see the Hooligans pulling this out?
I could see. Well, is Reed going to change Eric Decker? I mean,
I'm sure he will, and I'm sure Neely will bench Eddie Lacy.
Yeah, I don't see any way that that Neely can pull this out. Maybe play Tom Brady.
Yeah, I'll shoot him a text message and ask what the hell's going on.
Did I see that right? Neely has 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, he does. I know he has a man crush on Russell Wilson, but he needs to either play Brady or trade Brady because you can't have that much capital just sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
You know, and really, if Alshon Jeffrey would just get healthy and stay that way, he's not terrible at wide receiver with, well, yeah, he is. Never mind.
Did I see Wes Welker on there too?
Yeah, I guess he's just hoping for a comeback.
Okay, so now I got to say, my pick of Monte Ball is voided by the pick of Wes Welker. Because Wes Welker was out of the league last year.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Neely was not present to be admonished like he should. Next, we've got the Doughboys and negligent discharges, which is Schuster, of course.
Careful, don't bend down on it.
I think the Doughboys are a good team. Schuster has a team that I think is bust, but I think here I'd pick the Doughboys to win this one.
I think I would agree with that.
Have you seen the Doughboys' full slate of running backs? They've got Jonathan Stewart, Amir Abdullah, Jamal Charles, Frank Gore, Todd Gurley, and Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
Yeah. I don't know why he's not actively shopping one of those guys to boost his team at receiver. Maybe he's waiting on a running back injury.
If he's having the same problem I've always had, it's you send trades to 5 people trying to shop them and nobody replies. They're not interested, but instead of hitting no, they just let it sit there. And so you never really know what's going on.
Well, I sent a multitude of trades today, and nobody had any problem slapping me down.
There's a coalition against you, it seems, at most of the time when it comes to trading.
I think so. It's like a coalition of the unwilling.
It's led by Pyle.
And what sucks is I'd probably trade you. I don't know if we have the right combination of players that's going to help both of us potentially, but that you're my rival, so I'm afraid that if I get that trade wrong, that fucks me in week 13.
Yeah, and a problem I'm having is I submit a trade. I think that it's pretty fair, and then the other side says, well, if you want this guy, then he's probably going to do well soon, so no.
Yeah. Well, I think I get that. If you watch anybody have a track record of winning and you've ever doubted anything they've done, whether it be a waiver pickup or a trade, it's easy to say over the course of time, well, he wouldn't be trying to trade for this guy if there wasn't a reason, and he's obviously not giving me enough for him.
Yeah. I've won quite a few trades over the years, so I can't be too upset, but it does seem pretty arbitrary as to the trade embargo against me. But I'm at 0-2. I'm not much of a threat, people. So,
Well, I guess we can talk about it when we get to that league, but I was looking at everybody's team this morning after Trevillo and I got that deal nailed down, and there's a lot of people that can be doing a lot of things to help themselves, and the trade, if they were to make it, would help both parties. I think it's probably maybe partially that people aren't looking at it that in depth, and then the other part of it is kind of the fear of getting it wrong and then helping that other person, and then you're stuck with a bust. I don't know. And actually, I wish we had enough people listening to this live where we could do a poll or something, but it would be nice to understand the trade attitude of everybody in the league so that we could, maybe have more success with our offers and getting a response and what people think is fair and how they come up with that,
Yeah. Well, with the three of us being in the NFC, even as we think that there's moves to be made that people are not making, it's still much more active than the two newer conferences. And if we can, over the course of the season through this podcast, plant the seed in the AFC and PFC managers as to what types of trades would be beneficial to both teams, maybe we can help make that happen. I'd like to cultivate the trade relations over there. The AFC didn't have a single trade last year, and that's just criminal. So,
That's unheard of in a fantasy league.
Yeah, I think one year I had 14 trades. So, I mean, that's more than one a week when you account for the trade deadline. So, I don't know. Guys, look at your team, see where you're weak, and look at other people's team and see if you complement one another and you can work something out.
Yeah, and if you need it more specifically, if you need a running back and you are in the AFC, go see the Doughboys.
Yeah, for sure. Go talk to Green. Send him a message. Speaking of that, I sent out an email to everyone with everyone's email address and phone number. So if you are on the email list, you have the email address and phone number for every single person in your conference as well as the other conferences.
I used it today, and let me just tell you that I appreciate Trevillo for being old school and picking up the phone and calling a guy and talking it out instead of going back and forth and back and forth. He's a class act.
I was going to ask if all of those phone numbers were cell phone numbers or if there were some old school people that just gave a house number or a landline.
I don't know if anybody in this league still has a landline as their primary or only means of communication, but if they do, we should give them a trophy.
Now, I have a landline.
But you also have a cell phone.
Well, true, but the whole reason I have a landline is because last year for Lent, my wife gave up her cell phone.
Oh.
So that was her primary phone.
So did she sit in the chair in the kitchen with the extra long cord on the phone, twirling around her fingers and talking on it for hours?
No, it wasn't like that.
Oh, man. That's not cool.
I imagine it went like, hey, if you want to talk to me, call me on my regular phone. And people are like, I don't want to actually talk.
Yeah.
All right. Well, getting back to the AFC matchups real quickly. We're actually rolling through these relatively fast. We've got the surprise of the AFC, Musselman's Mutinous Apes, going up against Lynn's Brewmasters. Lynn needs to put somebody in his one of his flex spots, but this seems like a very balanced matchup. I would give the edge to Lynn because he has stronger wide receivers, and that's what wins you this league. But what do you see here?
I saw exactly what you just said. When I went down the list, I think it's hard to argue that Larry Fitzgerald, Brown, and Williams are equal to or greater than Antonio Brown, Julius Edelman, and James Jones, who's on fire right now in Green Bay. There was a time when we could get to the next position and say, oh, well, he's got Adrian Peterson, but that doesn't appear to be a power play anymore. And Carlos Hyde is coming off a near concussion, so I'm assuming he's going to have a timeshare. And you look over there, and you've got a fresh C.J. Spiller and Latavius Murray. It might even look closer than it's going to end up being.
Carlos Hyde is going up against the Arizona Cardinals defense, so
that's rough.
Yeah.
And Jason Witten, so Jordan Cameron, both their tight ends are a little banged up. I don't like any Seattle Seahawk wide receiver. Wheaton is still a good play while Bryant's suspended, and Amendola is probably hit or miss. I don't see New England having to throw the ball a lot to beat the Jaguars. I could be wrong. Let me go see their bench here. Nothing stands out on the bench, but I still feel like pretty much anybody Josh puts in there gives them the edge.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, and that Denver defense, I think, has surprised a lot of people and will do better than expected. Meanwhile, the Seattle defense, maybe they'll get back on track this week against the Chicago team without Alshon Jeffrey or Jay Cutler, but they've been pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I think Seattle starting out 0-2 has a chip on their shoulder and a lot to prove right now. I would hate to be the Chicago Bears this week. That's just going to suck for them. It's great for me, but.
Yeah, and we'll get to it in a moment, but I know that you just made a trade for Jimmy Graham.
Yeah.
I can see how you would expect a bounce back from him going against that Chicago defense.
Yeah, something's got to give. And now he's let it leak to the press that he's pissed off, and I just can't see a team trading for Jimmy Graham to be a blocker. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
But looks like the Cox and Steel Rain next on the matchup list.
Yeah, let me get the screen back up. I just invited Tadlock, so he might join us at some point. Yeah, so the Cox, the impotent, horrible, no good, very bad Cox, going up against Steel Rain. I think we talked about his roster before you got on the podcast, Duff, but I like Fitzgerald's team. I mean, I especially like it against Peacock's team, but I think he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think we even talked about this on the bus, that giving the events leading up to the draft, going back before the night before, there were a lot of surprises at the draft, and Captain Fitz was certainly one of them. We did mention we saw some Homer picks, but he was smart enough to put him in as kicker and defense at least. And I was just looking at something, and shut me down if we don't have time for this, but Peacock can actually save this team.
Yeah, if you want to give a quick, tutorial, so to speak, on how he can save this team, go ahead. Hopefully he hears it, and what we love doing is upping the competition, and we don't want anybody to have an easy victory.
Sure.
So we will gladly tell someone how to make their team better.
Well, what Peacock wisely did, whether it was drafting or trading, He has Ryan Matthews and DeMarco Murray. And DeMarco Murray left practice today with a hamstring injury and is getting an MRI done. So this is bad for Murray, but great for Ryan Matthews, and great for a guy who has James Starks on his bench right now. Because I think even if Eddie Lacy's cleared to play, I don't see any reason to start him against the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football if you don't have to. So essentially what he could do is survive the week by getting Starks in there and start the Philly running back that'll get play time. And then go find out who's got Adrian Peterson and try to flip McKinnon for somebody that's startable. And then go find out who has Blue. And if they don't have it handcuffed to Foster yet, maybe they're interested in Polk, who is actually a viable starter this week and much better than the Green Beckham start he has in one of his flex spots. So anyway, after making a few moves, I think his projected points would be a lot closer to Steel Reigns. And then for the long term, Sam Bradford's whatever, but he does have Peyton Manning on his bench with those two of his first picks being quarterbacks. And I think Peyton Manning, if nothing else, is dependable. He may not be elite anymore. So move a quarterback, turn it into a wide receiver. Emmanuel Sanders and Percy Harvin, I think, are viable. Kendall Wright is where it dips off, and I think if you combine it the right way, you can get a viable third wide receiver. Use what you can of these running backs while they're still getting playing time and flip them to the people who need the handcuff. And really what it comes down to is what people are drafting for late in the draft, and that's who they're going to start at flex picks on certain weeks.
Well, and that's where, we talk about how Peacock essentially lost the draft when he chose two quarterbacks in the first three picks. So at the top of his draft, we thought he made bad picks. He really set himself up for failure, and then he kind of doubled down. And then in the back half of the draft, he went ahead and drafted two kickers and two defenses.
Yeah.
So if there's ever anything that we talk about as very baseline elementary draft advice, it's wait on a quarterback. If you have one you trust, don't pick two. And don't ever pick a kicker or a defense before the second to last round, and don't ever pick more than one kicker or defense. So he kind of broke all the rules, and he's got the record to show for it. But it's a long season. And
is this his first year doing it?
No.
No, he was in the original Oil in 2006. He finished in third place, and he joined the AFC last season. He didn't make the playoffs, but I don't know. He had a lot of fun at the draft. I'm not sure that he is as competitive as we are, but I'm sure he doesn't like losing. So that is
nonetheless. Drop your extra kicker defense, pick up some people, make some moves. The season's early enough; you can save it. Don't give up just because you're shitting on your draft.
And if you're going to hold on to two quarterbacks, sit Bradford until him and Chip Kelly figure out that offense.
Yeah, even if he is a former Sooner, you gotta let that go.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nye, his team looked really dead in the water. I think he was lucky to get to 1-1. He had Romo at quarterback. Romo's injured, but then he had Cam Newton on the bench. So another example of someone that, yes, you have two good to sometimes great quarterbacks, but you can only start one. So I'd rather have one good quarterback and then an extra position of strength elsewhere than two great quarterbacks. It worked in this instance because Romo went down, but he does not have a lot of depth, although his starting roster right now can win him some games. Really quickly, he's got Cam Newton, T.Y. Hilton, Vincent Jackson, and Torrey Smith. and then Lamar Miller and Le'Veon Bell, who comes back from suspension, Greg Olsen and Jordan Reed, and Alan Hearns in the flex spot. So, not the greatest team ever, certainly not a deep team, but a team that with this lineup can win some games. They're going against Rowe and his Rebel Alliance. I think Rowe has had some really bad luck. I know the first week of the season he had a really big week and lost to one of the highest scoring teams. What do you think about this roster, Duffy?
Well, it's got potential, and as I look at it, I get the feeling that he's letting projected points lure his decisions, but Jameis Winston as your starting quarterback is a little dangerous. I would almost rather have Bridgewater, who's sitting on his bench. Demaryius Thomas is fine. Golden Tate's fine. Doug Baldwin's sketchy, but he's got Davante Adams on his bench. I think Davante Adams should be that third receiver. And then if you want to put Baldwin in the flex, whatever. LaShawn McCoy and Shane Vereen are perfectly viable running backs. Martellus Bennett is good. Ted Ginn Jr., sketchy at best, but, Cam Newton's running out of options in Carolina.
Say what you will about Ted Ginn. He's our number one receiver.
Yeah, on a team that probably hasn't quite found itself yet after losing Kelvin Benjamin and not exactly playing two similar games as far as week 1 and 2 go. But if you're willing to take that risk, they are playing New Orleans, and New Orleans could stand to bolster their pass defense. And then I love the flex play with Lewis there against Jacksonville. So I guess what I see is a team that is not only good in the starting lineup, but he's got Bryant coming back after suspension in a couple weeks, Doug Martin on his bench, D'Angelo Williams, who he could trade to the Le'Veon Bell owner and help out. I don't know. I like it. Actually, the harder I look at this, I would almost guarantee he makes the playoffs even though he's starting 0-2. He's going to be one of those teams.
He's definitely got one of the deepest rosters I've seen. I'm not counting Nye out. I think his team could do very well. I don't think it's bad. But in any combination that Rowe chooses to use, I think it's a better team. And he finally gets out of the hole and starts out at 1-2. We talked about Brosh's team earlier. The Vultures have been fantastic. We talked about it last week, although it did not actually get recorded, that we thought he had the best draft in the AFC. And at 2-0 and first in the league, it's looking that way. And the scary part is that at first in the league with Roethlisberger, Forte, Woodhead, Gronkowski, he's still got Arian Foster coming back from injury. So he's going against last year's champion, War Pony, whose team does not look as good now as it did last week. Joique Bell and Rashad Jennings have not been as good as I thought they'd be, and his receivers have also disappointed. So I think Brosh just keeps trucking here, gets to 3-0, and he might be 3-0 when he gets Foster back. So kudos to him.
God, it's a scary team. How did anybody let that happen?
I don't know, but during the draft, when I chose Foster in the 3rd round, he came over and said, don't talk about that too loud because I don't think the guys in my conference trust that he'll be coming back anytime soon. And then he was able to pick up Foster in the 6th round. So
great.
Yeah, I was very jealous.
What spot did he draft in?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I think it was mid to mid-late round position. It wasn't at the front end or the back end. I know that.
Okay.
He was 14.
Really?
Wait. No. That was the Cox. Hold on.
The Cox were drafted 14th.
Yeah, it was. Wait a minute. Where'd he go? Vultures 11.
Okay. Wow.
You know, so great draft. I mean, Arian Foster, 6th round. You know, it's just a steal. Zerger at 2-0. He's really hoping that Breeze plays this week. Who does he have as a backup if he does have a backup? He's got Derek Carr. Man, I would almost start Carr over Breeze at this point. Breeze, he's got that.
Especially against Cleveland.
Yeah, Breeze has got that rotator cuff injury. Those receivers have not lived up to the hype. Well, there wasn't a whole lot of hype for anyone but Cooks, but
Well, there
nobody-
was hype for Coleman, but we noticed at the end of the game last week that Breeze was missing people 5 yards short. I think he was hurt well more than the second half of the fourth quarter, and it was just progressively getting worse. It was like watching Peyton Manning throw in week 1, missing people by 5 yards. You're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, so that's what Zerger's working with at quarterback. He's got Odell Beckham Jr. at receiver, along with Mike Wallace and Cole Beasley. They're not world beaters. Justin Forsett and David Johnson at running back. Heath Miller, Kyle Rudolph, Lance Dunbar. I think it's a good, not great team. He is going against Hillier, who is not as good as he was last year. Who does Hillier have on the bench at tight end? Oh, Tim Wright. Well, that's not going to do him any good. Well, he's starting Kobe Fleener. That could work out if Dwayne Allen misses time with that injury, and it looks like that might happen. But Chris Ivory, Marshawn Lynch, and Melvin Gordon, that's pretty good. And then AJ Green and DeAndre Hopkins. Nelson Aguilar's been very disappointing. I guess this team could do better than I expected. If there's a weakness here, what do you think it is?
Boy, it'd be. I mean, tight end for what that's worth. I know that's probably not the sexiest position, but when you look at his two options, that's pretty. There's probably 10 better options on the waiver wire right now.
Yeah. So I think Zerger's going to get to 3-0, and he might be lucky doing it with Ellington, Deshaun Jackson, and Drew Brees all injured. So if he can get to that, good for him. He's also got Julius Thomas still on the bench. We don't know what he's going to do when he gets back in that new offense. But, Zerger, the one thing about Zerger is that he's actually involved. He'll be making waiver claims. He'll be making trades.
I co-manage. That's how I get access to the league, so I see all his activity. And without giving anything away, he's very active. Maybe too active and too quick to give up his waiver priority. But you're right. He's looking at that thing every day, like some of like I do, and a lot of other people do.
Well, he's taken it upon himself to write up a weekly review and preview post for the AFC. I really appreciate that. It keeps me on my toes and makes me do it for my conference. But I think he does it while drinking, because I spend more time editing his than I do writing mine. You can definitely tell that he is still in the military, because there's lots of mom jokes. Kind of homoerotic male rape. So I try and keep the spirit of Zerger alive in his preview post without putting that on our front page. But you can see here, very thorough. I've been putting in these uniform matchups for each week. I may not do it every week, but I like it. It just adds a little element that makes it seem more real. Plus, some of these guys, they'll unless they meet each other in the playoffs, we're not going to see their uniform combinations against each other unless they're rivals. And I just always find it interesting to see how teams would look if they went up against each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Looks like Steel Rain and the Cox would be like the Pastel Bowl. Yeah, but that's neither here nor there. Just a quick shout out to Zerker that he's been doing that, and I know I appreciate it, and I think that the guys in that conference also appreciate it. Let me see here. We do not have Tadlock on the podcast yet. He said that he is installing a plugin. So in lieu of talking to Tadlock about the PFC, let's just jump right into the original conference, the NFC, and then maybe Tadlock can get on here at some point, and we'll get his input on our conference, and then he'll be able to discuss his own. So let me start sharing my screen again. All right. This is going to be tough for me because I've never had to go down this far to see myself in the standings.
You're still above the frowny face whackers.
Yeah. Have you ever? There was a movie in the '80s called Flashback with Kiefer Sutherland and Dennis Hopper. And at some point, Dennis Hopper, he asked Kiefer Sutherland if he knew that they put serial numbers on condoms, and he said, "No, I didn't know that." And he said, "Well, you probably never had to scroll it down that much. roll it down that far," is what he said. And that's kind of how I feel here. I've never had to scroll the standings this far to see myself. But look on the top of the mountain here, we've got Leal with your Norman Nobodies, so congratulations.
Thank you. Last week was close.
Yeah, it was close, but you pulled it out with 327 points. You're a worthy number one. It's not like you've just had a couple of really low scoring games and gotten lucky. We'll get to your team in the matchup preview, but you are number one after 2 weeks, and at that 2-0 head start is just fantastic for getting to the playoffs. At number two, somewhat of a surprise, is Henderson, the Dark Narcs. I don't know if he's ever been that high before. And then
Maybe in college.
yeah. And then at three, you've got Jessen's Domination Station. Jessen, Yahoo hated his draft. I thought it was pretty good. He's 2-0. Even if his team was shitty, when you get to 2-0, you can make some moves, and just having that 2-0 head start gives you a lot of leeway in the moves you're able to make. The highest scoring team in the league is Rogers Ammo Dogs. They have 347 points, but they lost a nail biter last week to the Nobodies. So they're at number 4. This starts the plethora of 1-1 teams. Just behind him at number 5 is Pyle. Pyle's Lucky Enough squad has 322 points. And then you got Dead Again, who lost a high-scoring game against Duffy in week 1, and then won this week. So they're positioned well. They're playing me this week, and so they might get to 2-1. We'll get to that in a little bit. Bruce with his Sooner Jack squad is at number 7. Then you've got the defending champion Dirty Hippies at number 8. The Hippies, they were not able to pick their first 3 picks, although they did want to pick Le'Veon Bell. They would not have chosen Aaron Rodgers or Jimmy Graham. But they're at 1-1, getting Le'Veon Bell back. So, good for them. They've weathered the storm, and they might be able to pull this thing out. Right behind him are the Hangovers. Duffy, your team is at number 9, which is actually surprising because I thought you were ranked pretty highly last week. You must have had a bad week this week. Right after that is Yancey and Baldwin with the Roughnecks. And then the last 1-1 team is Cobb's Dogs of War. It should be noted, though, that even at 1-1, he has the lowest scoring team at 217 points, which is over 100 points less than Leal. The best worst team at 0-2 is the Hard Targets, managed by Finch. They've got 250 points. Right behind them is My Americans. We've got 245 points, which is just embarrassing. And then bringing up the rear, we've got Leal's rival, the Whackers, coached by Morgan. So that rivalry is kind of the best of both worlds here. We've got the number 1 team in the league and the last team in the league between those two. Before we get into the matchups, there has been some trade activity this week. I'd like to touch on that. And Duffy, this morning I saw this trade come in, and it made sense. I was still surprised by it, but why don't you explain what happened here?
Well, essentially, I traded Davante Adams straight up for Jimmy Graham. And the way it happened is Treville just called me yesterday, and he said, "Look, I want Davante Adams, and I need Davante Adams. So what do we got to do?" And we ran through some scenarios, and he offered Jimmy Graham. I voiced my concerns. I kind of wanted some insurance. He just wasn't in a position to give more than that for Davante Adams. So if you want to back up to the draft, I actually picked Davante Adams with the intention of trading him. I passed on Randall Cobb on purpose because I think Aaron Rodgers is different than other quarterbacks because he throws to the open guy every time no matter what. He doesn't have favorites. He doesn't have a crutch. He doesn't have a go-to guy and doesn't really need one, and fortunately for him in some cases. So when I picked Davante Adams, he was touted as the MVP of training camp, and I thought, I can flip this guy the first week he goes off for 30 or 40 points. Well, because Trevillo wasn't happy with his draft, I didn't need that week to happen. He was interested in Davante Adams right away. And tight end is hands down my weakest position. I drafted Dwayne Allen, who's hurt, and Richard Rodgers, who I just thought had high upside in the red zone and could be a touchdown every other week kind of guy. But I'm happy. I think Jimmy Graham, there's absolutely no way he doesn't do better than the first 2 games. They're playing probably one of the worst pass defenses in NFL history next week. They're angry at being 0-2. Jimmy Graham publicly denounced his role with the team. So I just think it's a recipe for success. I think Trevillo is aware that could happen, but I think he feels like Jared Cook is good enough to get him through that position, and he needs depth elsewhere. So,
all right. Well, Derek Tadlock has joined the podcast. Derek, I don't know if you have been able to look at the rosters, but the Hangovers traded away Davante Adams to the Dirty Hippies, and they received disgruntled Jimmy Graham. What do you think of that? If you can speak to it without seeing the roster in front of you.
Or if you can speak.
Yeah, it looks like he might. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you talk about Jimmy Graham for?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you talk about Jimmy Graham for Davante Adams?
Well, I don't know if was there any other tight ends involved. I mean, is there another tight end on the team besides Jimmy Graham?
He's going to be starting Jared.
I'm trying to get to the roster on my other computer.
The Dirty Hippies will start Jared Cook and Davante Adams.
Yeah, that's it. Right on level with Jimmy Graham. In fact, I think he's playing better than Jimmy Graham right now. So that's my take on that.
All right. Let me get back to the screen sharing here, and we'll get over to the PFC after we knock out the NFC here. The other big trade today, oh man, it just pissed me off. I sent Cobb a trade offer for Martavis Bryant. I'm not going to say it was a great offer for him, but I thought it was worth considering.
You never know until you ask.
Exactly.
Well,
And-
sometimes you got to get the trade out there to say, hey, I'm interested in this guy, and I know you're not going to say yes to this one, but I'm not going to show my whole hand right away.
Yeah, and you can see, so Cobb, he has a kind of a joke crush on Bilal Powell. In the 2013 Oil Bowl, his running backs were Bilal Powell and Rashard Mendenhall. We've joked and made fun of him for that. We did then, but he won the damn thing. And he's said ever since that Bilal Powell was the heart and soul of his team. So, if you read the Book of Oil, that's in there. But with Chris Ivory getting injured, I picked up Bilal Powell thinking that he might be starting in New York, and then I packaged him with one of my receivers and sent Cobb an offer for Martavis Bryant. Cobb, all he did was text me and say, "Did you pick up Bilal Powell just to try and trade him to me?" Which, yeah, pretty much. And as I was formulating my response and how I was going to spin this, I got the notification that he had traded Martavis Bryant and Crockett Gilmore to Pyle for Greg Olson and Cole Beasley. As we got on the podcast, Pyle asked if I thought he reached or gave up too much. I don't think so. I think that Greg Olson has been disappointing. Cole Beasley is not going to be, a wide receiver 3, and Crockett Gilmore has been very impressive. And when Martavis Bryant returns, you've got a wide receiver 2 potentially. So I don't think Pyle gave up too much. I know that Cobb needs help right now, but it's not a trade I would have done, and I was really disappointed to see it, seeing as I was trying to get Bryant myself. What did you think when you saw this?
What's that?
I said, what did you think when you saw this come across the wire?
I don't know. I guess knowing the backstory now, it's a lot more interesting, but I thought it was kind of a boring trade, but I was wondering when somebody was going to make an effort to get Martavis Bryant. He was probably the most drafted player with the intent to trade out of all the NFL players this year. I think nobody was picking him saying, oh, but week 5 I'll have him. I think they were just planning on finding someone desperate for a receiver and making it happen.
Yeah, and I don't think that Pyle is desperate for a receiver. I think that Pyle knows he's got a very solid team, and he can afford to wait on Bryant. Olson's been disappointing. Crockett Gilmore might actually be an upgrade when all is said and done. So I kind of like this delayed gratification for Pyle. He's playing the long game, the long con. He knows that Cole Beasley is not going to start for him right now.
Right.
Give him up, and Cole Beasley's bench spot can be taken up by Martavis Bryant, who might come in and be the catalyst that takes him to a championship. I also traded Niall Davis to the Jamal Charles owner for Jerick McKinnon, and now I'm trying to trade McKinnon to Finch, but Finch, I think, is the leader of the trade embargo against me. I'm not sure that's going to work. All right, getting to the matchups. First, we've got Cobb's Dogs of War going against the surprisingly good Dark Narcs of Henderson. I could see Cobb pulling this out, but I'm not counting on it.
I'm trying to catch up to you here. I think something is. Oh wait, here we go. And you're saying Cobb could pull it out but won't?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled it out. You know, he's got some bright spots on his roster, but it's not something I'm counting on. I think that Henderson gets to 3-0, and I'm pretty sure that'd be his first 3-0 start in the oil.
Well, yeah. No offense, Cobb. I think Henderson has a real chance to have a terrible week, but it's going to have to be pretty bad to lose to what you've got going on there. I think Cam Newton's fine. Amari Cooper's fine. Charles Johnson is a little bit of a stretch for a 2, and depending on how fast Mike Evans gets back in the mix, I guess that could be good. Jamal Charles and Mark Ingram, I don't have a problem with that, and Kelsey's good. But Malcolm Floyd, that's, it could go either way. And I think the verdict's still out on this David Johnson situation. Chris Johnson's still the starter technically, and Ellington will come back. So what's this guy's role going to be as far as this week? I guess he's expected to maybe get a lot of those points from special teams too.
Yeah, I think he'll probably catch 3 or 4 passes and have 60 to 80 return yards, which is 3 to 4 points right there.
Yeah.
So that 14 is not that ambitious, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't see for Cobb, LeGarrette Blount having an immediate role or impact in New England. Ertz is just boring at tight end, and it's his second one he's starting. He's got Green out there, which is okay if that's your only tight end start. Alfred Morris is probably about to lose his job with the way things look. And
Cobb, Cobb, like I said, is a former champion. And I think he's one of those guys that once he got his championship, he quit giving a shit.
It is worth noting he does have Alshon Jeffrey on his bench hurt.
But he's also got 2 more tight ends and
Reggie Wayne. Well,
The Washington start is interesting to me.
Yeah. I guess he's concerned about Alshon Jeffrey. But there's really not a whole lot else he can do. I'm assuming he'll put Cole Beasley in since he just traded for him. But I wouldn't be that excited about starting Cole Beasley.
Right. And then Greg Olsen would normally be a sexier start than Ertz, but I don't know. It's just kind of a mess. Now, we might have seen step 1 of Cobb's 25-step solution to fixing this, and if he gets that far, more power to him. But he does look kind of doomed this week.
I think most people don't know, but Cobb is an MMA fight promoter in Arkansas, and the athletic commission in Arkansas passed some rules against weight cutting and such. It was really going to devastate the MMA scene in Arkansas. So he's been spending most of his time really going through the nightmare that is the administrative law appeal process. But I think I saw on Facebook that they won. That's good for them, and hopefully now he'll start paying attention.
Well, unfortunately for him, looks like Henderson could lose both of his starting running backs and be able to replace both of them instantly with Crowell and Devontae Freeman on his bench. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to toot my own horn, but I drafted Henderson's team, and I think I've yet to get a thank you from him. So, in a way, I'm number 2 in the league right now.
We are gonna have to address this absentee. I know we use clicky draft and it didn't really work that way, but I think if you don't show up, auto draft should take control at that point, and that
Well,
should be your penalty.
I don't mind doing it for the most part. I know that there's a lot of people if they have to work, they can still get online and do their draft. He's a police officer and he was working the Labor Day weekend, so it's not
Right, but you can set it like this year was different, but you can set your pre-draft rankings and let auto draft get as close as it possibly can. But essentially, I have to play my Week 13 rival about 5 times this year.
Yeah, but your actual Week 13 rival is 0-2 right now. So,
Well,
speaking of your team, you being Duffy and your team being the Hangovers, you are going up against the Roughnecks this week. And Baldwin's team is not bad. He's got some injuries he's dealing with, especially with Bryant. I think that after your trade, and this is where we can really see, what your team looks like after giving up Devontae Adams for Jimmy Graham. I think it's a solid team. It's not fantastic, but I like your PPR combo at running back with Matt Forte and Shane Vereen. I've always liked your receivers. Brandon Coleman has been a little disappointing. So has Nelson Aguilar. But as a group, they've been pretty good. Leo, what do you think about Yancey's team?
Let's see here. I would pick Yancey's team to lose this game. I'm not obviously the tight end spot. Not too big on the Jones against the Kansas City defense. Just like Duffy said, I mean, Rodgers is going to hit the open guy every time. Down on his bench, man, Todd Gurley against Pittsburgh.
Well, it'll be Todd Gurley's first game back if he plays.
Which isn't going to be very many touches, probably.
No, but if Baldwin can weather the storm and be in the playoff hunt when Des Bryant comes back, he's going to have Frank Gore, Joseph Randall, Todd Gurley at running back. Ronnie Hillman might steal that job from C.J. Anderson, and he'll have Des Bryant, Jarvis Landry, James Jones, and Keenan Allen at receiver. If he can just be in contention when the playoffs really start mattering, I think he can get hot, make the playoffs, and be a potential champion.
Yeah, managing his players and really looking at their matchups on bye weeks for his big guys is really going to be important for him to do that.
Now, the issue will be weathering the storm and still being in the hunt when Des Bryant comes back.
Which is, 10 weeks now?
Yeah, he could be out quite a while.
Yeah, I think if I were in his situation, just given the roster, if somebody was able to get Bryant and just be able to sit on it, I would maybe go get someone that was going to help me be competitive now instead of the crapshoot saying, well, if I get lucky between now and then I can compete when I get these guys back.
Yeah.
And it was reported that somebody said Des Bryant's, or maybe it was Roddy White said he wouldn't be surprised if Des missed the whole season, or might as well have missed the whole season, because I think he's got the same thing Julio had last year.
He's got a Jones fracture, which is like what Kevin Durant had. And those things are almost unpredictable. I think Kevin Durant during his time had 3 surgeries. Luckily, whenever they went and did Dez's surgery, they just kind of skipped ahead and automatically put that bone graft in there, which they didn't do for like Kevin Durant. So he had 2 additional surgeries to get to that point.
Right.
But Dez Bryant is a whole lot bigger and does a whole lot more stuff than Kevin Durant does running up and down a basketball court. So it really is going to hinge on the rehab he does and his medical team really keeping an eye on the progress that he's making.
Yeah. Moving over to your Week 13 rival, Leal. Morgan is 0-2. He's going against the 2014 champion, Dirty Hippies. The Hippies get Le'Veon Bell back from suspension. Like I said, they just traded for Devontae Adams. This is a team that has a very unique makeup. It's not very often that we see a team with one of the top, probably the top quarterback and the top running back, and then everybody else, leaves something to be desired. So it'll be interesting to see, what this roster can do for him. Like if this were an auction, he would have, blown most of his budget on Rodgers and Le'Veon Bell, and then the rest of the guys are, they're not terrible, but they're not gonna scare anybody either.
Pay special attention to what he did now. He called me, and he could have asked for Julio Jones. He could have asked for Golden Tate, but he wanted Devontae Adams. I think Terrell is a smart guy, and he says, if I get a Rodgers to Adams touchdown, I'm basically doubling my points. But if they do throw to James Jones or Eddie Lacy or Randall Cobb or Richard Rodgers, I'm still getting the Rodgers points for it. So yeah. I think this was and I hope I'm not giving credit where it's not due, but I think that strategically was a very smart trade for him that makes him competitive long term. And I knew at one point we did have like a Julio Jones, Le'Veon Bell. I can't remember who all was jumbled up in it, but he declined and said, Bell is my guy. I don't care if I have to wait 2 games. So the fact that he had to split the difference after 2, it's not a bad situation for him to be in. Although, looking. He did improve his wide receiver situation, but he could probably stand to get some more depth.
Yeah, let's take a look at his bench. Torrey Smith, Torrey Smith is one of those guys that he's going to finish in the top 30, but you're never going to be comfortable starting him. He's just boom or bust. You never know what's going to happen. He's got Ryan Matthews on the bench, and so if Murray misses time, Matthews could certainly jump into a starting lineup. But as far as receiver goes, it's just Torrey Smith and Marvin Jones as viable guys on the bench. Decent, but like you said, not scaring anybody. He's going against a Whackers team that is without Drew Brees potentially, without Eddie Lacy.
And still without Victor Cruz.
Still without Victor Cruz, and potentially without Michael Floyd. Now, he did beat me on the waiver wire for James Starks. So, if he elevates him to the starting lineup, he still has that Green Bay running game. But I don't know if he will. He's got Darren Sproles, C.J. Spiller, and Chris Johnson in the starting lineup. And, Chris Johnson's not what he used to be, but he's a starter right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not too crazy about the Royals start either.
Yeah, against Seattle with a backup quarterback.
And with the cornerback coming back, too.
Yeah. But, with all that said, I don't think that – I'm not confident saying he's going to lose to the Hippies. I think this is a real toss-up here. If none of those guys play, I would have given it to the Hippies if Morgan had not picked up James Starks, but he did. So I'm just going to say it's a toss-up.
Is Cam Chancellor coming back this weekend?
I know that he reported. I'm not sure if he's actually going to play, although judging on the way their defense is played, I can't imagine they'll keep him out unless he says
Yeah.
No, they need to do something.
Next, we've got the number 3 team in the league, Domination Station. That's Zach Jessen. Jessen, by the way, is who told me to send an invite to Tadlock to join the league. So that's how. Because Tadlock, you were on the 2008 mission, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So if you're wondering who Team Tadlock is, they were not on the 2006 mission, but don't worry, he also had to go live in the shit for a year. So Jessen's team, for the first time in his oil career, he has a quarterback, and he picked the quarterback early, and in true Jessen luck fashion, that quarterback has not played up to expectations. He's got Andrew Luck, and then he had C.J. Anderson in the first round. He's not played well, but he did pick up Carlos Hyde in one of those early to mid rounds. Andre Johnson, Anquan Bolin, and Terrence Williams are his receivers. Good, not great. And then his flex spots are Stevie Johnson, Dion Lewis, with Martellus Bennett at tight end. He's going up against Finch, who was not able to draft his team. He needs to bench Austin Safarian Jenkins. But, he was pretty pissed off. He didn't get to draft his team. He had trouble logging in. He overslept and didn't make it to the actual draft. But on paper, and I know this is just on paper, it looks good. Peyton Manning, John Brown, Pierre Garcon, T.Y. Hilton, Adrian Peterson, Lamar Miller, Austin Safarian Jenkins, but he'll have to start probably Scott Chandler, which is not that great. And then Sammy Watkins and Rashad Jennings all in a starting lineup. That could be a solid team. I wouldn't put it past him to beat Jessen this week, but I don't see Luck having 3 bad games in a row to start the season.
Not against Tennessee, especially.
Yeah, how do you see this turning out, Leo?
If Andrew Luck comes out, performs against Tennessee, and Lamar Miller struggles against Buffalo, I have Zach Domination Station going 3-0.
Yeah. Derek, what do you think of your buddy Justin's team here? How would this do in your conference?
It stacks up pretty well. That's the top teams are averaging about that. But man, he did have some bad luck with Luck, and also Bennett. I figured I think he's kind of underperforming right now. But if Cam Chancellor's coming back, I don't see Bennett doing much more this week than that and what he's projected to. But I mean, Jessen's probably going to win unless Safarian Jenkins is subbed out. So
yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. Leo, here's your time to shine. You're number 1 in the league. The Norman Nobodies are looking their best since, was that 2009? You had the number 1 seed. See, you're going against Lucky Enough, who is a 2-time champion. This one's really close. Leo, what round did you draft Brady in?
I draft Brady in, I want to say, 6th.
Yeah, whatever it was a steal. We knew that he was going to be not going to be suspended. I don't know why we all let him go that far. He's been fantastic, and you're 2-0 and number 1 in the league. But Kyle is, right behind you. He does have a loss, but in points, he's still one of the best teams. I can't pick a favorite in this game. I just think these are two solid teams across the board, and I'll be watching this one. The only thing that's gone wrong for Pyle so far is he lost Romo. He's got Dalton at quarterback now. That's boom or bust, but I think this team is built to weather that storm. Duffy, what do you think about this Clash of the Titans here?
I was just kind of going down the roster, and I said I'm going to give Dalton the benefit of the doubt this week and say that Brady won't have to play his ass off to beat the Jaguars, and Dalton probably will to beat the Ravens. So if that became a wash, the what I would normally use as tiebreakers isn't there, but I think I'm going to go with the laws of averages here and say Leo loses just because he's 2-0 and Pyle's 1-1. And I know that's pretty shitty rationale, but that's all I got when you have a game that close.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at this, I'm still kind of struggling. I mean, Lorenzo Taliaferro last week, he had a great game. Of course, he's kind of got a little foot problem now. They don't know. He's still questionable with the knee and foot. But earlier in the week, I still struggled on whether I was going to start him over Austin against Pittsburgh. And who knows? I still might make that change depending on if anything changes with Taliaferro, because he is going up against Cincinnati. And that's a little bit different animal than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So.
Yeah, I could see Robinson, Woodhead, Gilmore, and Lockett blowing up and Pyle winning this one easily. But I could also see Amir Abdullah, Tavon Austin, and Tom Brady blowing up and Leo winning it easily. So, I guess that's why they play the game. But I guess this would be my game of the week if I was going to pick one.
And I'm interested to see what Crabtree does against Cincinnati's defense as well.
Yeah.
Cincinnati or Cleveland? I think it's Cincinnati.
The number one team in points is the Ammo Dogs. This is Rogers. He boldly picked receiver with his first 3 picks. 2 of those are looking great. Brandon Cooks has been disappointing, but there's still time for him to bounce back. He's going against Bruce, who went Murray and Murray at running back. And, man, he's really hurting with the way that DeMarco Murray's playing. I'm going to go ahead and give this one to the Ammo Dogs. I think a lot would have to go wrong for them to lose to Bruce this week.
Yeah, I think this one would – you would have to have, like, Matthew Stafford going out in the first quarter, and then probably something happening to Antonio Brown. But, yeah, there would definitely have to be something catastrophic. I think the Ammo Dogs would probably win this pretty handedly.
What does Bruce have on his bench?
Let me see here. He's got Delaney Walker, an injured Deshaun Jackson and Andre Ellington, Ted Ginn, quarterback Alex Smith, Chris Owosu of the Jets, who is out, and the backup running back in Indy, Josh Robinson.
Man. Yeah, he's kind of hurting right now. I think it's probably a pretty easy win.
Yeah. Well, that was my matchup, and don't take it easy on me, guys. I'm 0-2. I'm going up against Schmidt, his Dead Again team, which I drafted. And my draft strategy, I was really targeting Gronkowski in the first round, and Schmidt wasn't at the draft. I didn't see him logged in. I asked if he wanted me to draft for him. He said yes. He was working a funeral. So when it came time for him to draft, Gronkowski was the number one guy, and I'd feel kind of unethical if I didn't pick him, just hoping that he'd fall to me. So I gave him Gronkowski. I also gave him Marcus Colston, maybe a round too early, just because I know that Schmidt always picks Colston. But A.J. Green and Moncrief are looking good at receiver. His running backs are just good enough at Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Stewart. And he's got Gronkowski, Ebron, and Roddy White. I think, it's a solid team. It's not fantastic, but I would certainly take this team right now. I'll let you guys go ahead and break down the Arrogant Americans. Leo, you go first.
Yeah, I think Mike does have I would take that team. I'm really interested to see who you have in your flex spots. Dexter McCluster. See what he can do there. I like Randall Cobb. I like Jeremy Maclin.
I don't like Jeremy Maclin.
No?
He's done nothing.
Well, it's Monday Night Football. I think we talked about it last week. Steve Smith Sr., he's getting up there, but he can still play. Hill is good. Doug Martin, I like. If Roethlisberger struggles and A.J. Green struggles, who knows? You might pull out a close one.
I mean, it could happen, but Tadlock, what do you think of the Arrogant Americans' chances here?
Well, I like. I think maybe Tannehill. The Dolphins are going to maybe expose. Much as bad as I hate to say it, they might try to expose the Bills a little bit down there in Miami. And I look for Tannehill to put up about 10 more points than that. And on paper right now, Mike's team is, they're putting up some numbers. But with the PPR, your team looks like they should be putting up about the same. But I think your team's going to come around. I think Tannehill could go off at any minute and get a lot of points.
Well, Duffy, you'll go last because I know you won't take it easy on me.
And who knows? Your kicker, for what kickers are worth, with that backup quarterback there, they might be kicking a lot of field goals in Seattle.
Yeah, that was my thinking, picking him up. Duff? Did we lose Duff?
I think we did.
We did. He's completely gone.
It's a papa.
All right. Yeah, well, in lieu of Duffy, I'll just say that my bench right now, and this has kind of always been my philosophy, is a lot of boomer bust guys. Traditionally, I've just been a guy that does his research, listens to podcasts at lunch, and so I think I've had a leg up on the league on identifying these sleepers that could be boom or bust, and they've boomed more than they've busted. I think two things have happened this year. One, the level of competition just keeps getting better every year. I don't think that I'm that much far ahead of people on knowledge of who's out there and what the situations are. And the second thing is that, you do this strategy long enough and you're going to get a bunch of duds. And right now I've got Devontae Parker, Devin Funchess, Kristen Michael. Those are three guys that I picked for long-term projects, hoping they break out. It hasn't happened yet. I've still got Arian Foster on the bench. If he could come back, it'd be such a boon to my team. But if I could just get two of those three to perform like I thought they would when I drafted them, I think I'd have a pretty good team, and I'd certainly have enough trade capital to fix the holes in my squad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that my key players are that bad. Jeremy Macklin's been really disappointing. Jeremy Hill had 1 point last week, or 2 points. But the rest of it I can live with. If I could just have 1 or 2 of those guys on the bench break out, then I'll be happy. I'm not giving up yet. I can still make the playoffs, but I'm definitely expecting a Schmidt victory, and that would put me at 0-3 for the first time in my fantasy career. Okay, Tadlock has patiently waited, and now we're going to discuss his conference, the first year PFC, which is the Patriot Football Conference, just because it fits well with the National and the American. Somehow I didn't look at that and think Private First Class when I put it in there, but now I do. Going through the standings, looks like we've got 2 number 1 teams on this podcast right now, because Tadlock, you are far and away the number 1 team in the PFC right now. Tadlock?
Yo.
You're the number 1 team in your conference.
Yeah, I think I've had some couple lucky outings from Brady. He's been tearing it up for me. Let's see. Of course, I did have Dez. He's out. But I did draft Terrence Williams late. So he should be able to slide right in there. Kelsey, he carried me to a Super Bowl victory last year. I picked him up probably 3rd or 4th week of the season last year in one of my other leagues. So I like him a lot. And I just picked up Tyler Lockett off the waivers. And also, I think I actually moved Johnson into the starting lineup this week. I'm just kind of iffy on him, but I'm going to give him a shot this week.
How do you feel about Alfred Morris going forward?
I don't know. He's kind of underachieved. I really don't know what else I have to go in place. I think he's going to be a solid 7 to 10 points a week probably, but
it might work out for you where right as Alfred Morris is phased out of his role, David Johnson really starts to take over in Arizona.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for, and I can move him out of that flex spot into the running back spot.
Yeah, and then you got, Percy Harvin, which is always underrated in our league settings, not necessarily in fantasy in general. But again, another one of those teams where the running backs are not going to jump out at you.
I'm getting out of here, cool. All right, is Duffy on there?
It's a few people.
What's up, Duffy?
Actually, Duffy got off the podcast.
Who's that?
Oh, fuck, Duffy. Is that Crawford?
No.
All right, motherfuckers.
Who is that?
That was my brother.
Oh,
He
Rick
came,
too.
yeah, he came up to the fair.
Hey, I don't got a brick forehead, motherfucker.
Yeah, that was just me. So, I heard the door open and I expected to hear my wife's voice.
Did you find you a classy woman at the fair?
No, he already has a woman.
Wait, wasn't Donald Trump at the fair today?
Friday.
Well,
Did you go to that, Rick?
no, I missed it. The number 2 spot in the PFC is former 3rd Platoon Sergeant Scott Bure with his Dirty Dogs. This is one of those teams that doesn't do very well to start the season, but has a very easy schedule and manages to get to 2-0. Same thing with the Nightmares by Jimmy Mitchell, who Tadlock and the Nightmares already have their logo and uniforms released. They're looking good. The Dirty Dogs, they're being worked on right now. Every team in the AFC and the NFC have logos and uniforms. Those didn't happen overnight, so we are trying to catch up in the PFC, and we'll just get that done over the course of the season. At number 4 is Straley, which he starts the 1-1 teams. His enforcers have 314 points, so they would be the number 2 team in the league if we did power rankings. At number 5 is Sergeant Pierre, who is going by the Mechanics. Then you've got Doc Gray, the Great Plains Drifters. Beller, going by the Extreme. Breaks Boomtown Brawlers at number 8. And then at number 9, this guy, he's going by the Greasy Vandals. He is a friend of mine. His name is Brian Gauthier. He is a Marine Corps vet. And I just randomly met him when we were all out at a bar one night. And my brother just scared the shit out of me by knocking on my window.
I heard that.
That's what brothers are for.
Is there a story behind Greasy Vandal's name? Because I like it.
He says it's oil and gas related.
Okay. I know now.
Yeah. So every team in... Okay, there's 42 teams in the oil. All 42 were military. 41 of the 42 were Army. 40 of the 42 were in the 158. The Greasy Vandals, Brian Gauthier, is one of the 2 that was not in the 158. He was in the Marine Corps, and I think he was in the Gulf War, maybe. But he now lives in Seminole. Good guy, and
was he artillery?
I don't think he was, but he was very excited to join. And we'll go through his roster when we get to the matchups. But he's got some learning to do, but he's excited to be a part of it, and I'm glad to have him.
Yeah.
At number 10, we've got Gomez going by the Preppers. I think he's probably got a whole arsenal at home. A bunch of dehydrated food. At number 11, man, okay, it says Grant's cool team here. It's that dumb, team name that Yahoo assigns to you when you first sign up. This is Hudson.
Oh, Lord.
Hudson was one of the first to say he really wants to do this, wants to be a part of it. He hasn't logged in since August 17th. So, Hudson...
I think what you should do is have a contest on somebody in the PFC or in the whole oil to name, especially the whole oil, since we all know him, to name Hudson's team.
Well, he agreed to a name when he joined that I just kind of threw out there, and he said he thought was funny. He lives in Eagletown, Oklahoma. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Me either.
I live in Duncan.
It says Eagletown, Oklahoma. I looked it up, and that's like in Little Dixie somewhere, so I think he's lying.
I thought, no. So, Grant used to be the commander of the VFW post in Duncan, post 1119, where me and my dad are members of. He didn't run that next year when it came up. So he's no longer commander. And I want to say my dad said that he moved to like Eufaula, maybe. I mean, I was pretty shocked.
That's where Eagletown's at.
Yeah.
So he actually is in Eagletown. Well,
Probably so.
I suggested he name his team the Eagletown Comb-Overs, and his team logo be a bald eagle with a comb-over.
That's nice.
He said, fine, he'll do it. He has yet to change his team name. I've sent him text messages. I've sent him Facebook messages. I doubt he's listening since he hasn't ever logged in, but we did invite you. We'd like you to be a part of it. So log in, change your name, and compete.
They may not have internet in Eagletown.
That
Or he may not know how to use it.
So he's at number 11. At number 12, that is Sergeant McKay, the Orange Bloods.
Orange makes me puke.
Yeah, he always liked to put that orange in our face. Number 13 is Cordis, going by the Sec 4 Sixers moniker. And last is Little Baldwin, Derek Baldwin with the Blue Falcons, which I love that name. And he's a first-year fantasy player, so he'll get better as the season goes on, but he's definitely playing with a handicap right now based on his draft. So I guess we'll get back into the matchups, and the first one is number 2, Dirty Dogs, which is Beer, going against Doc Gray, the Great Plains Drifters. This is Doc Gray's first year playing fantasy as well. He's been pretty active, so I'm happy with that. I guess
being made, or is John Wayne it? Oh, I'm sorry.
He's gonna get a logo inspired by the High Plains Drifter movie.
Okay. Very cool.
Now, Tadlock,
Yo.
you probably know this conference better than anyone. When you look at these teams, what do you think going in, and who do you pick to win?
I like on this one the Drifters. Really haven't had a chance to look at these matchups today. Well, I say that, and then DeMarco Murray is staring at me in the face here. I don't know.
Bueller's got Eddie Lacy.
Yeah, Eddie Lacy needs to come out. What do we have on the bench? It's like, oh man.
He doesn't have anybody.
He's still waiting on Arian Foster.
Yeah, that's.
Well,
He needs to
he
cover
comes
that
back.
defense.
he can move Duke Johnson from this flex spot into Eddie Lacy's role, and then maybe put Mohamed Sanu in there, or Cordero Patterson. Not that those are really inspiring guys.
Yeah, I put Patterson there. He can go off any week. Patterson could. It might be once every 4 weeks for him.
Yeah.
I like Patterson better than Sanu
I do too.
right now, this week anyway.
Well, I think Sanu is a bigger threat to score a touchdown, but Patterson could have a big game in the return game.
Yep.
The Drifters, they've got DeMarco Murray, Gio Bernard, and Carlos Williams at running back. And then they've also got Andre Ellington injured on the bench, and he's still waiting on Victor Cruz.
I love Bernard at running back. He's one that I was going to draft if he was available when I wanted him, but I think he's a 15-pointer any week to me.
Yeah, and as a Jeremy Hill owner, he was a real thorn in my side last week.
Yeah.
So if Jason Witten is healthy and plays, he might be a big role with the backup quarterback, really leaning on him in this week's game.
Yeah, and I don't think he's missed a game in 150-something starts. If they say that he's questionable because of these injuries, I'm not going to doubt them. But I think if it's a toss-up, knowing that Dez and Tony Romo are out, he's going to suit up and do what he can to help this team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's been beat up. I've watched both the first 2 weeks, and he's been beat up pretty good. And I could see the backup not wanting to force things and just dump it off to him quite a bit. So, I mean, that's kind of a toss-up to me.
I could see the same thing with Lance Dunbar.
Yeah.
Whedon, he was great in college, but in the NFL, he's kind of been a captain check down.
Yep.
Dunbar,
he might pick up a lot of points this week.
Yeah, I can see him checking down to him quite a bit. All that to say, I think that I'd give the edge here to the Drifters, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me if the Dirty Dogs kept getting lucky and kept that win streak alive.
Yeah. And, with Wilson playing Chicago, he might break out. I mean, it's week 3. They've underperformed as a team. He might go off. You never know.
Yeah. Well, the next matchup is Tadlock, your squad, the number 1 team in the conference, going up against point-wise, maybe the number 1 team in the conference in Straley's Enforcers. I'm not going to ask you to break down your own team, but I'll say that between Tom Brady and your receivers, I can really see, and of course Kelsey, I think he'll continue to score a lot of points. I love Tyler Lockett. I wanted to draft him. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet, and he's still a 10-point-a-game guy at the least.
Yeah.
Terrence Williams, of course, you had Des Bryant, and so Terrence Williams is kind of jumping into that role. And I think that David Johnson can very easily match that 14 and maybe put up more. But going against the Enforcers, let me see who they've got on the bench, because I remember really liking their team, but I'm not liking it right now. He's got Lamar Miller, who's questionable, on the bench. Tevin Coleman is going to be out, and he's waiting on Antonio Gates. So,
Yeah, his bench stinks right now, but he's by far the best team I played so far.
yeah, he's got Kaepernick at quarterback, who he could. The scary thing about Kaepernick is the rushing yards, and that for a quarterback that really racks up points in a hurry. Antonio Brown is the number 1 receiver in the league. Steve Smith last week, he alleviated fears that he was not going to be Steve Smith of old. And Michael Crabtree is one of the most targeted players in the league through 2 weeks. That was surprising. He's kind of got the best of both worlds at running back. He's got like a super PPR guy in C.J. Spiller, and then just a battering ram in LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah.
If the Patriots, here's what I think happens down in Jacksonville. Jacksonville does all they can to stop the passing game. The Patriots are just fine with that, and they just ram LeGarrette Blount down Jacksonville's throat. Tom Brady's numbers go down, LeGarrette Blount's numbers go up, and that has a direct effect on this matchup. So that wouldn't surprise me.
That's what I saw it too. I kind of envisioned it that way.
Yeah, but if that doesn't happen, I anticipate a lot of passes going to Julian Edelman. So I think either way in this matchup, Straley's kind of got the upper hand as far as the Patriots are concerned. I think Kyrie Robinson does better than the 4 points they give him credit for. So I can really see Straley's team pulling the upset, but I'm not comfortable calling it right now.
Yeah, I think if this were in the newspaper, it would definitely be a pick'em in Vegas. At least that's the way I would do it. Just for the same reasons that Rick said. I mean, New England can do just really whatever Jacksonville thinks they want to stop. If they want to stop the pass, they can pound it with a run. And here's another thing. If they pound it with a run, who's to say that they can't score big on some long play actions, So I would have this one a pick 'em. I could see Bill pulling it out. Yeah, I would. If I was doing a parlay, I wouldn't bet this game.
No,
and I'm still thinking that you pull this out, Tadlock, and I just think that you do that at the tight end and flex positions.
That's true. That's a good point.
Between Ben Watson and Kyrie Robinson on the Enforcers going up against Kelsey and David Johnson, I think that's where you win this matchup, and not so much in the more high-profile starting positions.
Excellent.
next, we've got 2 0-2 teams, so something's got to give. McKay Orange Bloods going up against Cordis's Sixers. Cordis was first platoon with me. We were in Bravo Battery together, and he jumped on the grenade this week to do the preview post, and I really appreciate that. It's really good having somebody else that can knock those out, especially since I actually do work for a living. I mean, I know people have wondered what the hell I do with as much time I put into the website, but sometimes I do actually do work, and it's good when I can rely on Cordis to get one of these knocked out for me. So I was really surprised that Cordis's team started out this way. On paper, I think this does not look like a team that's in 13th place. Tadlock, you've been following this more closely. What do you think of the Sec 4 Sixers?
Well, I played him already too, and I really liked his team as well. Like I said in one of the other leagues, Bennett, I really like Bennett as a PPR tight end. He's one of my, probably if I hadn't got Kelsey, that's Bennett's one I would like to have had. I think he's kind of underperforming. Tyrod Taylor coming into the season, I thought he was going to be a good one too. I really like this team. I think he's just a few numbers off being up there, in the top 2 or 3 or 1 to 3 in this league. So I really like the Sec 4 Sixers team. I really haven't had a chance to break down the Orange Bloods, but of course I see Eli Manning right there. Who knows about him? Marshawn Lynch, same way this season. I like Eifert too as tight end.
And Amir Abdullah.
Yeah, and I don't know. In the past few years, I've really started leaning a lot on tight ends, and I think they're the make 'em or break 'em position in these leagues. So I like both of his teams.
Yeah, our overall champion last year, the Dirty Hippies. And we discussed this last week, but like I said, we screwed up and only 15 minutes were recorded last week. But how this is going to work is last year we had the 2 conferences. The 2 conference champions in Week 16 would play each other in Week 17 on paper. We'd hand tally that, and then the winner was the overall league champion. This year, Week 16 will be the championship games for each conference and act as semifinals for the Oil as a league. The 2 highest scoring teams will move on to the Liberty Bowl. Of course, they'll be the 2 highest scoring winning teams, but the overall champion last year was the Dirty Hippies from the NFC, and they had Gronkowski at tight end. And I think you're right that you really can win leagues at the tight end position because Gronkowski, the difference between what he got at tight end and what you got at tight end meant that you had to win every other position group to break even. And that's really tough to do, as evidenced by the fact that he won 10 games in the regular season and then ended up winning the whole damn thing. So Eifert and Bennett are both good players. Eifert's been hotter to start the year. As much as I like Cordis's team, and I'm really disappointed in how it started, I really think that this Orange Bloods team can get off the schneid and pull this victory out.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I like the Orange Bloods for the win in this one as well.
Yeah, and we'll see. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Cordis won. I mean, it's not like Brandon Cooks and Marcus Wheaton have been doing really well for the Orange Bloods. Jermaine Kearse, I think, put up 0 points last week. But I really like Eli this week. I like Golden Tate, Amir Abdullah, Marshawn Lynch, Eifert, and Dion Lewis. So,
yep, I do too.
Yeah, we'll see there, but Next, we've got the Boomtown Brawlers, which is Zach Brake going against John Gomez, the Preppers. Now, the Brawlers, they had Romo at quarterback. They did pick up quarterback off waivers, and that is Jameis Winston, so keep that in mind. They've got James Starks on the bench, and they're still waiting on Martavis Bryant. All that being said, I liked his team coming into the season. LaShawn McCoy, Carlos Hyde, Brandon Marshall, Julio Jones. I mean, there's a lot of big names on this team, but they haven't performed. They're 1-1 going against Gomez, who is a first-year fantasy player, and he's 1-1. So, he's been pretty lucky. But
I like his receivers.
Yeah, Demaryius Thomas, A.J. Green, and Amari Cooper make up a pretty good trio for the Preppers.
Yeah.
And then he's got Stevie Johnson in a flex position, and he's been money.
Yeah.
But at tight end, he's got Dwayne Allen, who may not play, although he could put in Jordan Reed and probably do better.
Or Heath Miller.
Yeah. And then he's got Isaiah Crowell also. And Shane Vereen. Yeah, I need to shoot a text message to Gomez because he's got some big capital.
Man, that's a nice team. I like that team.
Yeah, he can easily flip some of these guys and make his team better.
Yeah.
Wait till after he plays me before you send him an email.
Yeah, don't worry. I think that he's not that great about returning emails and text messages anyway.
And, I'm kind of curious. You said Brake picked up Winston on the waiver wire. I wonder who else was out there. Because I'm kind of in the same team as Duffy as to, those first-year rookie quarterbacks, just kind of on the fence about them.
There's really not much on the waiver wire in this league. I mean, I think a lot of people that auto drafted or somebody drafted for them, they got a lot of good stuff on their bench. They're not subbing like they should be. But.
Well, we're looking at the waiver wire for this conference right now, and
I like Derek Carr.
There's Mallet.
Yeah, I think I would have taken Fitzpatrick or Carr over Jameis.
Yeah, even Joe Flacco over Jameis.
Yeah, I like Flacco too.
I would have taken Manziel if they wanted to start him again, but they're going to bench him this week.
Yeah.
So, it's not who I would have picked up off the waiver wire, but at least he's on the ball.
Yeah.
He said that the Drifters offered him a trade of Alex Smith for Martavis Bryant. That was good thinking on Doc Gray's part, but Brake said he wasn't going to give up Bryant for that price.
No.
So, obviously he sees Bryant as being a big part of their long-term plans, and he's just going to ride it out with whoever he can get on the waiver wire and hope that when Bryant gets back, it makes that much of a difference. It makes it worth it. But first year or not, I really see the Preppers winning this thing.
Yeah, I do too.
That's an awesome team.
Maybe in blowout fashion.
Yeah, top to bottom is great.
Yeah. So next we've got the Blue Falcons, which is Derek Baldwin, going up against Jason Beller, going by the Extreme. I don't know what the Extreme what. I don't know if he's in the Extreme Fantasy Players or...
It's the old WWF Football League.
Oh, yeah, XFL. Well, let's see here. Baldwin, like I said, it's his first year playing. He's got some solid players that haven't necessarily lived up to expectations. Sammy Watkins, Adrian Peterson, and Mark Ingram are a good base, but they just haven't really done it for him.
Aguilar and Beasley.
Yeah, if those two would step up, it'd be a big break for him. Let's see. On the bench, he's got T.Y. Hilton, which he can probably upgrade to the starting role with him being healthy. if DeMarco Murray actually misses time, Ryan Matthews could be very valuable, and he could replace Joseph Randall.
He's got Todd Gurley on the bench too.
Yeah, so
this week.
Yeah, he's still waiting on Todd Gurley. You know, once he is fully back, I think he'll be in the starting lineup. You know, he's got some boomer bust guys on his bench also with Devontae Parker, and Bishop Sankey has kind of been that way. And he's going against Beller, who I don't think this is his first year playing. I like his team on paper, but C.J. Anderson has been really disappointing, and when your first round pick whiffs like that, it definitely hurts your team. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Blue Falcons get their first win of the season here.
I'm going to agree with you there. I think they do.
Yep. Man, this is a really close one too. To me, I think Tannehill, he's still underperforming. At any minute he'd get 40 points, but I like the Blue Falcons with their first win of the season as well.
Yeah, I hope that works out for old Baldwin. He's living in Ohio now with his wife and kids, and doesn't really have a lot of contact with the guys. So hopefully he can get a win and talk some trash and get back in contact with everybody. Man, here we've got Grant's cool team, because he hasn't changed his name yet, going up against the Greasy Vandals. Like I said, the Vandals, I think it's their first year playing. They've had some questionable transactions. Hudson, he rode auto pick to a stellar draft. Now he's got Le'Veon Bell back, and I just don't see any way that he loses this game to the Vandals.
Man, yeah, I don't either.
And he's got.
Who does the Vandals have on the bench? I mean, is there any possible? No.
He's even. Yeah, I can see this being. He's a 200-point team. Hudson is. Any week.
Yeah, that could happen. He's got Bridgewater at quarterback in place of Breeze. His receivers are Mike Evans, DeAndre Hopkins, and Devontae Adams. He's got Le'Veon Bell and Dexter McCluster at running back, Ladarius Green, Charles Johnson, and John Brown. And then on the bench, he's got Bilal Powell, who could possibly be a starter if Chris Ivory is out. He's also got Michael Floyd. If he would ever sign in and actually manage his team, I think he'd be a threat to win it all.
Maybe you should assign somebody. Text him and see if he'd agree with that.
Yeah, I'll talk to him. I know that there was somebody else Jessen was suggesting maybe that'll join. I mean, if somebody asked me, I would definitely take that team.
Oh yeah, me
I'll
too.
take it.
The last matchup in the PFC is Jimmy Mitchell's Nightmares going up against Sergeant Pierre's Mechanics. Mitchell is 2-0. Somewhat surprising based on his receiving core and the fact that Manning has been less than stellar. The Mechanics are 1-1, and the Mechanics, they've got some potential with Hillman at running back. He might take that C.J. Anderson job. Torrey Smith is always boomer bust. Jarius Wright, maybe he overtakes one of those guys in Minnesota. But all that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Nightmares, their luck continued and they got to 3-0. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Sergeant Pierre here. Both these guys end up 2-1, and the conference is kind of a toss-up 3 weeks in.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Pierre's team as well. I mean, you have Beckham Jr. against Washington. You have Murray against Cleveland's defense. And then you also throw in Matt Ryan against Dallas, which is kind of iffy because they're playing at Dallas. They just got that linebacker back. He's
Yeah.
doing pretty well. But man,
Dallas has not played well at home.
No,
that's true. They haven't.
on the road.
It's probably because we were there. We took
Yeah.
pictures of the grass.
Probably.
But Manning is the key point because he has definitely not lived up to any expectations of this year.
Yeah, if Chris Ivory misses this game, I don't think the Nightmares have a chance. If he does play, I think that they have as good a shot as anybody. I mean, they've done it so far. They're 2-0, but I don't see the depth on their bench that would allow them to replace him comfortably. He's also broken the cardinal rule of drafting by having 2 kickers and 2 defenses.
Yeah, and I think I would probably start Roethlisberger over Manning.
Yeah, I would do that as well. At least until Manning proves me
I
wrong.
would too this week,
Yeah,
and I wouldn't have DGB starting either.
yeah, me neither. I drafted DGB, and just because everything out of training camp said that he was just a monster, but he's not been targeted.
But Eric Decker is injured, and Kenny Stills has not done anything. So, I mean, that's why you don't have 2 kickers and 2 defenses.
That's true. And too.
You could have 2 extra guys on your bench that could help when these guys get injured.
No, he could have 3.
There's
With your quarterback.
well, there's an empty.
Yeah, there's an empty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Poor decision on Mitchell's part.
But it's gotten to 2-0, so let's see how it hangs.
Yeah, but maybe he gets to 2 and he falls to 2-1. He sees the error of his ways, and he makes some moves and then comes back stronger. Maybe we'll see.
So,
What's up?
out of all 3 conferences, what are your game of the weeks for all 3?
Oh man. Well, in the NFC, it's definitely the matchup between. Shit, we were just talking about that. It's not me and Schmidt, I'll tell you that. Oh, in the NFC, it's the Norman Nobodies, which is Lille, against Pyle's Lucky Enough franchise. The 2 of you were both original Oil members. You're number 1 and number 5, but I think you're number 1 and 2 in points. Yahoo has you separated by only 3 points, and you just have a history. The 2 of you. Pyle is a 2-time champion. You've lost in the Oil Bowl. You've had number 1 seed before, so that's one that I'm really looking forward to. In the PFC, it's got to be Tadlock against the Enforcers, number 1 versus number 4.
Yeah,
I think that one is also number 1 and number 2 in points. So, and if not in points, it's certainly close. Yeah, it is actually. So, without a doubt, that is my game of the week in the PFC. I'll be paying close attention to that, Tadlock. And then over in the AFC, which seems like we talked about ages ago, I would say it's the Mutinous Apes, kind of the surprise of the league so far. They're number 4, going up against the undefeated Brewmasters, who are number 2, and that's Josh Lynn. The Mutinous Apes is Musselman, and so this is one of those rare Hawaii versus North Dakota matchups. And they're definitely my game of the week. I think there's some other games that could be interesting, but this one has the intrigue, and they're definitely the 2 highest ranked teams playing each other. So that is going to do it for this week. If you hadn't noticed, I finally uploaded that photo of us to the website, the photo of us at Cowboy Stadium, or AT&T Stadium, if you will. See, so that is on the website. And
also, if you click on Yahoo Sports directly to the Yahoo Sports link, we are the very first headline story on that page.
We sure are.
Yeah. Yesterday we were on Yahoo.com on the front page. I've been getting a lot of people contacting us and saying, "Hey, I saw your story." One guy contacted me and said he runs the draftparty.com, and they have reusable magnetic draft boards they want to send us to use next year. And so we've been starting to plan next year's draft, and one of the suggestions is cabin. And if we do that, we might use these draft boards, have one person on the side with Clicky Draft, and then we can just reuse these each year. We got a lot of great feedback from that. My opinion is kind of stained or colored by the fact that I knew what was going on behind the scenes. I spent so long negotiating and setting it up. So I don't know if my opinion of the draft party is fair or not. What did the two of you think about the draft at AT&T Stadium?
Go ahead, Tadlock.
I really liked it. I mean, it was cool for a first time. I'd never saw the stadium before, so of course it was awesome for me. And then I like the setting for the actual draft itself, and I like the setup for it. The three different areas there. In the future, I've never used the magnetic sheets. I think that's an awesome idea. I've always wanted to do that. I see it on the TV shows a lot. And I think that'd be really cool. But I actually enjoyed, for my first time being down there, I thought it was a really cool experience to have the draft in the Dallas Cowboys Stadium.
So I would probably say unless we can draft at every stadium every year, a different stadium every year, this is probably untoppable to have our draft there. But the cabin idea I really like, because we can get not just a cabin, but I mean you could rent huge houses on lakes, down by the ocean. I mean Galveston, over over by Branson at Table Rock Lake. I mean you could rent huge houses and split it between all of us, and that's on the damn cheap. Buy some food and have us stay there for a week if we wanted to. So I really like that idea. I think one of the other ideas that I had that I heard about the cabins on the bus was doing cabins over around Tahlequah, and not only drafting there, but also like floating the river, having some good cold beers and cookouts out in the campgrounds. I like that too. So.
All right. Well, let me just get this out of the way. I've been kind of. I was not as impressed with the draft, and I admit that that's probably because I'd planned it for so long that I had different expectations, and the person that I spoke to at the stadium made a lot of promises that didn't happen.
Like the no beer?
Well, he did, he was honest about there being no beer, but he didn't tell me that until like 2 months after we'd agreed to do this. Here's the backstory of the draft. I put out a press release saying we have a 10-year reunion and a 10-year anniversary draft party. We don't know where we're going to do it, but it's a big deal, and we are looking for corporate sponsors. If you want to sponsor us, please contact us. So somebody from Cowboy Stadium contacts me and says, found your website. I think it's great. We'd love to host your draft at AT&T Stadium. I come to the guys and say, what do you think? Everybody thinks it's a great idea. So we tell them, great, we'll do it. About a month later, he says, yeah, and it's only going to cost about $1,000.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, well, we asked for sponsors and you contacted us. We kind of thought y'all were competent. I'm like, no, we can't do that. But they have like birthday party packages that they say are already discounted. So by that point, everybody was excited about Cowboy Stadium. So I stuck with it, and knowing we were going to have that, $1,000 or more, that's when I really started hitting the fundraising with the GoFundMe, asking for money, because I didn't want to tell everybody, all right, we can do this, but y'all got to show up and give me a bunch of money. So when he contacted me, he said we would draft on the field, in a luxury suite, in the post-game press room, or something like that. Then he told me, well,
where we drafted was nowhere like that.
Yeah, he said, well, you're going to be in the Desperados room, which is where the Dallas Desperados Arena League team used to play. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, So then we get there, and as you know, it was like practically a closet, not in size, but it was the deep recesses of the stadium underneath some bleachers. There's the
I thought that's where the players sent their kids during the game.
Yeah, it turned out that's like the daycare. Because we walked in, there's those kiddie tables and toys, and then there was a sign up there about daycare or something. And the turf was the Dallas Desperados turf, but as you know, that is not where the Dallas Desperados played, because there were no seats and there were big concrete pillars in the middle of the turf. So what it was is the Dallas Desperados went defunct, and they said, well, let's not just waste this turf, let's use it, put it in a room somewhere. And so they put it in this room and called it the Desperados room. So there was a lot of overpromising there. They put us in the daycare center. Then he said, send me your league logos, and I'll make sure that's on your group photo. Well, that didn't happen either. I looked at the contract and said, this says we're only going to have it for 2 hours. That's not enough time. What can we do? And he said, don't worry. Nobody else has that room that day, and so we'll make sure nobody's rushing you out the door.
Which they did, I remember that.
The representative that I negotiated everything with was not there that day. So everything that we talked about, not only did it not happen, when I asked about it, they were like, well, I don't know anything about that. So 2 hours in, that guy with the big gut came up and was like, hey, how much longer are you going to be? It's supposed to be 2 hours. So that's when I said, okay, everybody, switch your picks to 30 seconds. We got to get the hell out of here. I talked to the representative from the stadium about that, and he said, oh, well, he was just doing that because, if you stayed later than 3 hours, we had to charge you money. But that was never discussed in the contract or the negotiations. I think the guy was a pretty good salesman. Ultimately, we spent exactly $1,000 on that. I'm glad to hear that you guys really enjoyed the stadium tour and that you liked the draft setup, and just, I think the best part, and I'm sorry you didn't get to do it, Tadlock, was the bus ride down there and the bus ride back.
Yes.
We had so much fun. I don't regret having it there. I just regret believing a lot of the promises that were given. But it's over, it's done with, and the fact that, Leal, you said, nothing could ever top this, makes me feel a lot better about it. So that's the 2015 draft. We're already planning next year's, and now you know the story behind the scenes of how this happened this year.
Yeah, and I didn't say it last week during our show, but I want to say it now. Is a huge, huge, huge thank you to you, Brick, for putting it together, for driving it, for just keeping everybody on task, on sharing it on social media, emailing it out, just keeping it up front for everybody to know what's going on. This is what we need, for reaching out to all of those national outlets that helped us out for the fundraising. I mean, we couldn't have done it without you, and you did a great job. I'm very proud that you did that, and I'm grateful that you did that. Every time I watch the Yahoo video, it brings a tear to my eye. You did a great job, and that's why I said it can't be topped.
Well, thanks. I mean, that makes everything worth it. I mean, it really was kind of like a second job for quite a while, but it's a labor of love. I enjoyed every second of it. I mean, the planning was a lot of fun. The day of the reunion was a lot of stress because everybody was asking me a million questions all the time. But just looking around and seeing everybody, telling old stories and laughing and joking, it was all worth it. I'd do it again, and I hope we do it again in 5 years, 10 years, or even earlier.
Yeah.
That is the oil hour this week. Hopefully we can get other guys on next week, and this is going to be Wednesdays at 1900.
Right on.
All right. Thanks, Leo.
All right. Adios.